welcome to the Committee for Economic Development's Fall Policy Conference. I'm Steve Odlin, the CEO of the Committee for Economic Development. And I'd like to start by, first of all, thanking all of our sponsors for the conference. If you look at the materials and the signage we have around, we'd love for you to whisper a thank you and do a little business with our sponsors. They've been very generous and made this conference happen. Many of our sponsors have shared with us materials that you can pick up, and they're on the outside of the room on the conference table. CenturyLink, Heidrick & Struggles, Intel Security, McGraw-Hill, Symantec, Western Governors University, New Star, and Trustee David Young all have left materials. Please do help yourself to them. We have a terrific lineup for the conference over the next 2 days. We've got many panels and speakers. We have discussions on workforce readiness and education, energy and global trade, cybersecurity, the economy, the November elections, the political outlook, and women in corporate leadership. If you can't find something to interest you in the next couple of days, then, well, you might as well go home. This is going to be a great conference. And tonight we have a special guest with us, Dan Daniello, one of the co-founders of the Carlyle Group, one of the largest private equity firms in the world and happens to be headquartered here in Washington, is our honoree for our dinner tonight. As you know, CED is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, business-led public policy organization that delivers well-researched analysis and reasoned solutions in the nation's interest. So that's a lot of words, but it's really important to us. And our core principles are, first, sustainable capitalism; second, long-term economic growth; third, efficient fiscal and regulatory policies; fourth, competitive and open markets; fifth, globally competitive workforce; equal economic opportunity; and then, of course, nonpartisanship. And we were founded in World War II when President Roosevelt convened the who's who of CEOs in that era and asked them to focus on the economic policies that would be implemented by the United States following the war. And for 72 years, CED has acted in a nonpartisan way with our business leaders in order to do just that. We have many trustees that are here today as part of our organization, and I'd like to ask all of you who are our trustees to please stand for a moment and be recognized. You can note them by their name tags, but these are the trustees and the current brain trust of CED. Thank you all for your contributions and your leadership. As a housekeeping note today, our conference for the next 2 days will be on the record, and I encourage all of you to join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag CEDPolicyConf, so that's CEDPolicy, so CED Policy, and then CONF. And our Twitter handle is @CEDUpdate. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. We're very pleased to begin our conference today by hosting the launch of this very important project to help children make safer decisions on the Internet. The Internet today is ubiquitous, as we all know, and key to our lives, and our children participate very much so from an education perspective and in all ways. Today's digital world gives them unprecedented amount of information and ways to communicate, and those are things that just didn't happen in previous generations. But at the same time, we've got to address the issues and the concerns that result from our kids now having such prevalent and exposed online identity. And it's the reason that Intel Security and Discovery Education have developed what they have named the Intel Security Digital Safety Program, and are with us today to unveil this important new program. We're very fortunate to have 2 CED trustees involved in this initiative. From Intel Security, we have CED trustee Michelle Dennedy, and from Discovery Education, we have CED trustee Bill Goodwyn, both of whom you'll have a chance to meet a little later in the program. It's now my pleasure to invite to the stage Penny Baldwin for opening remarks. Penny is the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer for Intel Security, but previously she was the President and CEO of both Young and Rubicam Advertising and Wunderman Direct Marketing, 2 very large organizations. Penny, Thank you for coming and welcome. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. In 2009, Intel Security began training children how to use their computers and digital devices safely through a program called Online Safety for Kids. Since then, we've trained about 250,000 children. Sounds good, right? Well, our ambitions are far greater than that. By the end of 2015, we want to train millions. So together with Discovery Education, we are going to globally scale the combination of cybersecurity and education and make it available to anybody who has an internet connection. Together, we'll create innovation, learning, and community. I'd like to thank Bill Goodwyn, President and CEO of Discovery Education, for joining in this partnership with us. I'd also like to say hello to Ann Nelson, who oversees science and education policy under Congresswoman Donna Edwards. You'll hear from Ann via Skype for a live session with some school children today. But before we begin that program, first I would like to invite to stage Representative Jim Langevin. Jim Langevin is a senior member of the House Armed Services Committee and the House Permanent Selected Committee on Intelligence. Jim is recognized as a national leader on securing our nation's technology infrastructure against cyber threats. Welcome to stage, Representative Langevin.
Well, Penny, thank you very much for the introduction. It's great to be here with everyone, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you on a topic that's certainly near and dear to my heart, and something I've been working on for quite a long time. So, when I first heard about the Think Before You Link campaign and Intel and Discovery's partnership to make this a true nationwide undertaking, I have to say I get incredibly excited about what you're doing, and I hope it will continue well into the future, because I think it's absolutely essential. Really, it's the marriage of two of the areas, again, that I've been most passionate about, and that's addressing the growing challenges that our nation faces in cyberspace, and the education of the next generation of professionals in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM education, or of course, if you include, which I like to do, art and design in that field, turning STEM to STEAM, as others have said. So my fascination with cybersecurity dates back to my chairmanship of the Homeland Security Subcommittee that had jurisdiction over these policies in 2007, and my subsequent co-chairmanship of the Center for Strategic and International Studies Commission on Cybersecurity for the 44th presidency, where we prepared really the blueprint of how best to do cybersecurity that we prepared for the incoming president, which I know became the basis of President Obama's subsequent review and action in this area. So I also co-founded still co-chair the Cybersecurity Caucus in the Congress, which is a key information source for policymakers and their staff in DC. And I'm proud to represent the great state of Rhode Island, where for years now we've been at the forefront of this issue. And I want to point out and acknowledge my colleague, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, our junior senator in Rhode Island, a former member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, as well as the current chairman of a subcommittee on the Senate Judiciary Committee that has jurisdiction over cyber. So be it our National Guard, who continue to do incredible work on missions of national importance, or it's our state police and the Rhode Island Cyber Disruption Team, who work in that public-private partnership to develop the cyber capabilities and partnerships that make a real difference at the local and the state levels, or it's our schools, particularly our colleges and universities, that have real expertise in many of the cyber policies and practices that we're working on. Rhode Island punches well above its weight when it comes to cyber, and I'm very proud of that. So now the fun thing about cybersecurity, as I look at it, is that it's incredibly dynamic. And it certainly keeps your interest in a lot of ways, and it's essential, obviously, going forward. And I can't tell you, of course, what the cyber debate is going to look like a year from now, but I can tell you that it's going to be quite different from today's, and almost unrecognizably so, unrecognizably different than when I certainly started on this issue some 7 years ago. So cyberspace itself is a very difficult concept to define, because it's not just the web. It's not even just the internet, where email, industrial control systems, and other such key systems operate, though they may not even be on the web. And some of the systems, particularly sensitive systems, aren't even connected to the internet at all, and yet is still vulnerable to cyber attack. But however you define it, cyberspace is a vast area, which means that there's lots of attack space for people with bad intentions to act against, which in turn means that there's a lot of defense that's needed. So let's think for just a second about the technology that we can't even see. Take our basic services that we rely upon every day: water, sewage, electricity, gas, transportation, communications, healthcare. Or take industries like finance or manufacturing. Every single one of these sectors obviously relies on technology on a massive scale. That is not going away anytime soon. It will most likely never change in that respect. Power companies rely upon network switches to keep the nation's grid up and running with fewer people and more efficiency than ever before. Gas companies shift flows as they are needed at the touch of a button. So the problem is that these very systems that enable massive and unprecedented efficiencies are, in effect, strapped onto a system that was never designed with security in mind. And the structure of the internet is fundamentally open, with security basically laying on top of it. So we have to rely on the very smart people who design hardware and the software that it runs to make everything that we transmit over the internet secure. But of course, even smart people make mistakes, and sometimes even smarter people figure out ways to exploit their designs and their vulnerabilities. And it only takes one vulnerability to break into a program. And when operating systems have tens of millions of lines of code, you can see how some cracks might get through, even though there's most rigorous quality controls systems in place. And to compound the problem, these programs and systems are constantly being upgraded and patched as bugs are fixed and features are added and removed. So that's troubling in and of itself. But what happens when each of these systems is connected to many others? And I'm sure many of you heard of the Target breach that resulted in the exposure of more than 40 million credit and debit cards and 70 million records, including names, addresses, emails, and phone numbers. And I'm sure at the time, Target figured that it had an adequate security system in place. And the reality is that the hackers didn't come through the front door bypassing their cyber defenses. By most accounts, the Target hack actually started with a fake email attack that was sent to an employee at a heating, cooling, and ventilation and air conditioning vendor that did business with Target. And once the attackers broke into Fazio, they were able to get enough information that enabled them to carry out the attack on Target. So it goes back to the old saying that you're only as strong as our weakest link. So you see variants of these stories, of course, repeated time and time again from Home Depot, Sally Beauty Supply, Michael's Craft Store, P.F. Chang's restaurants, and many, many others. It seems like a week doesn't go by without some kind of a major corporation being hacked, and that's in many ways just credit cards. We see, of course, now state records being breached and exposing huge numbers of people to identity theft. We see health records being compromised. We see just about any large online repository of data becoming the target of an attack. So how do we stop this from happening in the first place? Well, to be quite honest with you, we probably can't. As long as there are really smart people out there that want to create mayhem and walk in the wrong side of the law, then they're gonna continue to try. But I think that we can do quite a bit to limit them, quite frankly. So let's say that we have an absolutely amazing and flawless cybersecurity system defending the nation. Now, this is obviously fiction, of course. I wish we did, but it's fiction. But if we did, even the best system requires people to run it. And right now, we're desperately short of those true cyber experts that can operate at the highest levels. The first director of the CIA's Clandestine Information Technology Office back several years ago estimated that we probably only have about 1,000 people in the country that can operate at world-class levels in cyberspace, and what we really need is somewhere between 30 and 40,000. So you see the divide that we're facing. Now, of course, part of the shortage is a result of the lag time in education. Cyber is a relatively new domain, and our colleges and universities are really still right now just ramping up their cyber training capacity. The government can help, but this is obviously a capability that, again, takes quite some time to build up. And of course, at an event a few weeks ago, one of the participants joked that, well, there actually are enough people out there with the skills and the talents, just that there are too many of them on the wrong side. So I guess I try not to be that pessimistic, but and I think the truth probably is somewhere in the middle. But obviously, it's a great point. So let's jump into that for just a moment. Who are these masked individuals that delight, it seems, in taking our personal data, and how do we make cybercrime less attractive or less profitable? Well, that's hard. How do we impose costs on those who pursue it? Because right now, cyber criminals, as you can well appreciate, possess in many ways state-level capabilities, immense skills, huge financial incentives, and in many cases legal havens that afford them almost complete sanctuary. They can operate with near impunity out of countries such as Russia and China, beyond the reach of American and European law enforcement agencies. In many ways, we don't know whether it's the state itself who may be behind this, or giving tacit approval, or looking the other way. So if I'm a hacker, it's just as easy for me to attack someone across the planet as it is to attack someone across the room, and it's almost as easy to attack everyone with a vulnerability as it is to attack one person. So basically, I can sit back in a safe haven somewhere in one of those countries and lob attacks worldwide. And when we do catch them, of course, attribution is always an incredibly hard thing, and actually getting our hands on them to physically prosecute them is difficult. And when we do get them, it's probably because they've done something dumb, like go to Europe for the holidays, or with the FBI and the Secret Service, and others have developed fantastic relationships in law enforcement that allow them to grab these guys and bring them to justice. But it clearly doesn't happen nearly often enough. So this is a hard nut to crack, and the only way to get there is, quite frankly, by slow, deliberate diplomacy. We have to somehow change the calculation that makes cyber crime so lucrative, or change the calculus for countries that are doing it or are looking the other way. We have to make the countries that harbor cyber criminals realize that it's in their best interest to cease and desist, and we have to attack cybercrime at the source, not just try to defend ourselves one attack at a time. So basically, I've touched on law enforcement, diplomacy, the tech industry, healthcare, telecom, critical infrastructure, and a few others. And I could just as easily have brought up national security and intelligence and many more. But the impression that I want to leave you with is that so many of you really, I guess I'd say, really already know. And that's that cybercrime cybersecurity is inextricably linked with every aspect of our future. economy. We can no more envision a future in any sector of our economy without the internet than we can without electricity or running water. And if you're in school today, no matter what field you're in, you're going to need to know about cybersecurity. Having that fluency and that understanding is going to be a massive boost to your career down the line. And in this room, all of you who are senior in your companies, I know are probably constantly on the lookout, not just for people who can operate your networks or build your tools, but people with other specialties that also understand cybersecurity. So we need a pipeline that can educate each of those types of people. Cybersecurity is, in my view, a team sport, and it's going to take huge numbers of cyber-savvy individuals across the entire economy in order to manage this problem out into the future. So as I wrap this up, let me say cyber is going to be a big part of the overall STEM picture, or STEM to STEAM picture, as I like to say, which I might add is looking particularly attractive at this moment, with the European Space Agency landing a probe on a comet just yesterday, and with the release of the blockbuster movie like Interstellar, in which every one of the big name leads plays either a scientist or an engineer. That's hugely encouraging for kids, and getting kids interested and encouraged is what STEM success is all about. And that's why I'm so pleased when I see mentorship programs or internships or apprenticeship programs that are reaching out to today's youth and showing them what the full universe of tech options might be. And that's why it's so fantastic when I see programs like this one that are helping schools to talk to kids meaningfully about the internet and cyberspace. Whether or not each of the kids ends up getting into the cybersecurity field as a career, almost every attack comes down to someone opening the wrong email, or clicking on an unsafe link, or failing to patch, or making another choice that isn't internet savvy. That means that we need to do a better job of getting those basic best practices out to the general public, as well as across organizations and corporations. And of course, that starts with encouraging good habits in K-12, the earliest ages. So we're never going to solve cybersecurity as much as I wish that we could. It's a challenge that we have to manage. It's just like you learn to use a seatbelt and drive safely to minimize your risks in a car. We need tech-savvy kids to use computer best practices to minimize their risks and footprint in cyberspace. You depend on smarter applications to not reveal your information, so we need to keep training brilliant software engineers. You depend on cyber attacks being found and defended, so we need to keep making great system administrators and network warriors, and you depend on your government to do the right thing when it comes to the policies that underline all of this. So I and my colleagues, I can promise you're going to keep working to make sure that we do the right thing by the American people. Before I close, I just want to say how pleased I really am to see such a great level of commitment to K-12 cyber education by Intel and Discovery. I really thank you for the work that you're doing in this space. This really is the type of public-private partnership that is going to define just how successful we are in the information economy of the future. And I commend the vision that went into this initiative, and I certainly look forward to working with each of you as we go forward. Thank you very much.
Representative Lanichevin, thank you very much. So at this point, I would like to introduce Matt Mongen, who is Vice President of Educational Partnerships at Discovery, as well as Ann Nelson, who joins us live on Skype.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. Over there in Washington, D.C., my name is Matt Mongen, and I am from Discovery Education. And one of the things I get to do is partner with Prince George's County Public Schools. It's an awesome opportunity because I get to stand in places like this. This is Gladys Noon Spelman Elementary School. So say hi, everybody, to everybody in Washington, D.C. Let's let them know that you're good. And these kids are so excited to interact with you all in just a little bit. This school, let me tell you a little bit about them. There are about 520 students from in and around the town of Cheverly, Maryland. And that they represent about 15 different countries from around the world. So a lot of good diversity and thought goes into this particular school. And it's led by Principal Susan Holliday, the instructional leader and principal of this school. Joining me as well here at the school is their media specialist. So we can welcome Jennifer Hummel. And Jennifer Hummel is going to talk to you a little bit about what we do here in the school and in this class.
Hi, I'm the Library Media Specialist Technology Liaison here at Gladys Noon Spelman, and part of my job is working with our students on computer skills. We just started a unit in the 5th and 6th grade on internet etiquette, and online safety is a big part of that. So we're looking forward to trying out this wonderful new program and adding it to our repertoire of sites.
Great. So like I said, the kids are so excited to share what they've learned with you all so far. And in today's fast-paced society with all these digital devices, it's really important, like we heard from the speaker too, to really be aware of all the things that involve safety and the safety of our students online. So along that lines, it's important to know that that Intel has brought to you a program about Intel security and digital safety. And before we talk about that program, I want to introduce one more person that I'm joined with here. Her name is Miss Ann Nelson, and she is speaking on behalf of Congresswoman Edwards. And Miss Nelson oversees the education and science programs and policy in her office.
Good morning, folks, or good afternoon, rather. Unfortunately, the Congresswoman was sorry not to be able to join us today, but she sent me with a short statement from her to read. Our children are our nation's most valuable assets. Each of you represents a bright future and holds our hopes for a better nation. But children are also the most vulnerable members of our society. Protecting them against the fear of crime and from becoming victims of crime is a national priority and is why we are here this afternoon. Unfortunately, the same advances in computer and telecommunications technology that allow them to reach out to new sources of knowledge and cultural experiences also leave their personal information at risk. That is why the launch of Think Before You Link is so vital to their safety today. This program can teach them how to protect themselves online, how to keep their computers virus-free, and how to be responsible digital citizens. And kids, cybersecurity can be your career choice of tomorrow, too. As some of you in this room already know, Maryland has become a hub of cybersecurity work. Maryland is home to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the National Security Agency, or NSA, the Intelligence Advanced Research Project Activity, the Defense Information Systems Agency, and U.S. Cyber Command. It is also host to the Cybersecurity Incubator Program at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, while University of Maryland University College has been designated as a National Center for Academic Excellence in Information Assurance Education by the NSA and the Department of Homeland Security. These programs provide a great complement to both the well-known contractors and the smaller cyber-focused entities in our state. You all are growing up in a world where the fastest growing jobs require a significant amount of math or science preparation. By focusing on studies in the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, you will be well poised to get a job in this new 21st century economy. But that all begins with good digital citizenship and digital safety. So without further ado, I would like to thank Principal Susan Holliday for hosting us here at Gladys Noon Spelman Elementary School this afternoon, and turn it back over to Matt.
Great. Thank you. So as I mentioned before, you're going to see students interacting with the Think Before You Link program developed by Intel Security and Digital Safety. And this really is a tool to help students gain awareness of cyber safety and cyber ethics and cyber security. So let's go check it out.
Hi, Amira. What are you working on here?
Oh, I'm working on. It's a guy named Christopher, and he's playing an online game, and he just got a message from a stranger.
So you get to be Christopher?
Yes.
Well, what would you do?
Well, I would change my screen name from Christopher Smith to something different because that's my real name, and I wouldn't want anyone to know my real name so they can forge something or whatever.
Oh, good point. So would you answer that message from him?
No,
Why?
because if I like tell him where I am, he can rob me.
Good point. We don't want that to happen, right?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Prince? What are you up to?
This is a screen where it's showing me getting an email from a stranger named FunGirl11.
And what does the email say?
The email says, "I can meet you after school at the park. Let's make it a surprise. Don't tell your parents."
And what would you do if you got this email?
If I got this email, I would pick this option to show my parents because if I delete it, then the next time they email me, my parents will have to have some proof that they emailed me before. And if I reply, they can get more information from me and do bad things.
It's a very good answer. Thanks, Prince.
You're welcome.
Ronaldo?
Hi, Ronaldo. So what are you working on here?
I'm seeing that that he's showing his friend that the game that he's been playing, and his friend asks him for his password.
And if you were playing a game with your friend and your friend asked for your password, what would you say?
I wouldn't reply to him or her because my password is my personal information.
Exactly. And why is it so important to keep your password to yourself?
It's important to keep your password to yourself so hackers won't know like in Facebook what all your personal information.
Exactly. Great answer. Thank you.
Precious?
And Precious, what are you working on?
I'm working on a click and drag where it's asking me if this message is from a stranger or a friend.
Okay, and what does the message say?
It says, "Hi, I saw your pictures and would love to hang out. We are both in the same grade."
And who's it from?
I think that would be from a stranger.
Right? Because who does it say it's from?
It says from John Doe. And if you don't know who that is, then it's most likely to be a stranger.
Right, so you would drag it over to the stranger?
Yeah.
Very good. Great, good job. Thank you, Precious.
All right, so we're coming up to our fifth and last station, and we want to give you all time to ask our great students here questions that you may have, or ask any student any questions that come to mind. So we want to let you all have a chance to make a way to a mic, and we'll come over here to our fifth station.
Okay, Jacob, let's see if you're ready to set up your profile. Oh, awesome. Are you making choices there?
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about which choices you're making?
I chose the screen name because if I use my real name, somebody can hack into my profile and they can log in my real name and they can post they can post bad things to my friends and my family.
And that wouldn't be very good, right?
No.
Okay, what else? Let's see. Why are you saying no for show my scores?
Because they can steal my scores and I don't want that.
Oh, okay. So that's more information about you that you want to keep what?
Yeah, it's private.
Private. Awesome. Who can see your posts?
Friends only.
Why?
Because if you're not my friend, then you would want to see me fail or get in trouble by authority or by my school administration so I wouldn't want anybody else to see my posts but my friends.
Okay, so if I was not a friend of yours and I saw some of your posts, like maybe those ones where you say, hey, I'm going down to the playground?
No, then you wouldn't know what playground I'm going to, because I would say, hey, I'm going to Cheverly Park or something like that, and then you would try to go to Cheverly Park, and then you would meet me, and then I would be like, oh my gosh, are you the one that messages me? And then the guy would be like, yes, and then he would be like, and I'm taking you home with me. And then I said, no! And then
So that's not a good idea, right?
Yeah.
All right, got it.
All right. Okay.
Awesome choices.
All right. Well, let's give a big hand for everybody in the room here. I know we really enjoyed everybody's answers. Jacob, that was an awesome scenario, so thank you for sharing that. We want to know from you all, are there any questions in the audience? Can we ask a question? Okay, well, it looks like you guys did such an amazing job in the room that you answered all of their questions ahead of time. So do you guys have any questions for the people in the room? Oh, we have lots of questions over here.
Precious.
Well, I wanted to ask that if all of you in the room had help with the game, or if it's just a certain amount of numbers that help.
Certain amount of people that helped?
Yeah.
To make it?
Yeah.
So we're a certain amount of people in the room, the developers in the room. I think these actually people probably not. But they may know of people that have developed games like this and they have influence on what games might happen, what games like you might want to see. Another question, how about from some group over here?
What do you work for?
So the question is, where do you all work? Anybody want to share where they work in that room? What do we have represented in the audience? Oh. Okay, well, now we can. Yep.
There's a lot of different people, there's the camera, hello, in the room from all sorts of industries and all sorts of really cool jobs. But I did want to let you guys know to answer the question before about who did this. And this is really exciting because the people here today are people that influence governments, people who create technologies like Intel security, and then the people from Discovery Education who are experts in how to get information to you guys in the form that you guys can use best. So I wanted to address that question a little bit, and most of all, thank you guys for interacting and playing with these tools and technologies. We're so excited to bring them to you.
Well, we don't have any more time for questions, so how about everybody say bye-bye to everybody over in Washington, D.C.? And we'll leave from here. Yep.
Matt, Amy, thank you so much, and thank you to all the children using our online Safety for Kids program. Thank you so much. See you guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. So at this point, I would like to introduce Bill Goodwyn, who is President and CEO of Discovery Education, and ask him to join me on stage. In addition, I'd like to invite up Michelle Dennedy, who is McAfee's Chief Privacy Officer, part of Intel Security. Michelle? So it's at this point, I think, Michelle, you were going to open up with a few comments, and then I was going to ask you guys some questions.
Penny knows I always have some good comments. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Steve and the trustees and CED for allowing us to come. I don't know if Bo Cutter's in the audience. I can't see if he's there, but I think about 10 years ago, Bo and I did a project together about gamification and the budget for CED, and I remember so clearly presenting it, and everyone kind of looking at me like, with this big O on their face. And now here we come, and there's a Twitter handle, and there's Facebook pages, and we're Skyping at CED. So I think it's an amazing, and I'm so very, very grateful to bring this forward here. And the last thing I'll say to kick off is, last year at this time, we had Secretary Duncan talking to us about the challenges about educating the next generation and workforce. And at the very end, I, of course, grabbed the mic, as I want to do, and Steve indulged me, and I said, Mr. Secretary, you have a war against ignorance, and I have an army. How do we get this thing together? And this is what we're talking about today. We have an army like no one else has ever seen before. And we'll talk a little bit about how this all comes together. But that's the kind of squaring of the circle I wanted to put out there, and why we're announcing it here at the Fall Policy, and why this is policy, this is technology, this is public-private partnership, entertainment, education, and high tech, all working together synergistically to move us into the next world and economy and create the leadership that we really have always supported here at CED. So thank you most of all.
Great. So, Bill, again, thank you for your partnership. And I was wondering if you could comment on how you see education evolving in the next 10 to 15 years.
Well, first of all, I hope I'm around in the next 10 or 15 years to start with. I think you're seeing incredible things happening in the classroom. We visit classrooms every day. I think you saw Matt in PG County, but we have a team of people that work hand in hand with districts K to 12, and you're seeing incredible technological innovation happen in schools. Disruptive technologies have integrated a lot of different sectors, and education has been slow for a number of reasons, but now you're seeing incredible resources that you can actually personalize learning. So you're seeing personalized adaptive skills and tools. You're seeing technology being innovated in classrooms. But the one thing that you're also seeing is professional development, right? You're seeing a lot of work with educators and teachers to make sure that they can deliver on what we know to be great instructional practice. So I think between now and the next 10 or 15 years, I think one thing that's always constant, and that's the impact that teachers, great teachers, can have on students. So I think what you'll see is you're going to see an increased need of a larger focus around professional development to deliver that great instructional practice, because when we go into modern day classrooms, when we go into modern digital classrooms, right, you see incredible technology, and that's going to continue to accelerate, as I said before. You're seeing incredible personalized and adaptive tools. That's there. You're seeing incredible rich curriculum and content. That's there. But what you notice is none of that, okay, is successful. And it's only as good as the teacher really implementing that instruction into the practice. So.
Great. So talk a little bit about some of the challenges you see in the next same time frame. I mean, there are things that are evolving and improving, certainly, but there's some challenges that remain intact. What are those?
Well, anytime you talk about public education, the first thing that comes to mind when you talk to educators is funding, right? It's very difficult. So one of the challenges with the budget crisis is a lot of times educators are forced, not because they want to, but they're forced to really teach only the things that they're tested on. So when you talk about great programs and information and education around, let's say, cyber education, when you talk about driver's education, when you talk about STEM, when you talk about financial literacy, when you talk about all these sort of core curriculum life skills that are very important, a lot of times there's no resources available. So that's what's really cool about this public-private partnership, what we see today with Intel Security. Businesses are taking a very, very strong role in supporting education. But I think funding is always going to be an issue. So I think the great thing about what we're seeing in education and groups that come together like this at the CED conference, businesses have a stake in solving some of these issues, workforce development, making sure that we have the talent pool for the jobs that are going to be available in the future.
Great. So Michelle, cybersecurity has never been more prominent or more visible in the news. So can you share with the crowd today a little bit about what you're doing, what the company is doing to keep one step ahead?
Yeah, it's really incredible, and it really is, this work represents what we're doing. We're looking across the spectrum. We're working with governments and nation states on one hand and protecting them and critical infrastructure. We're also working with our policy team, as part of our policy team is here, to make sure that the laws are not so far out ahead that they're meaningless or so restrictive that they restrict technology. So we work very closely to say, if this is a digital economy, what are the tools? What's the knowledge? What kind of a professional, what kind of a board governance do we need? And then we build accordingly. These become the requirements and the specifications that lead what equals quality. And so that's how so my internal day job is as Chief Privacy Officer for McAfee as part of Intel Security. I review every product that goes out the door to make sure that we have a means to manage information, metadata, personal data, and intellectual property data that goes through our system. So as we're protecting you and gathering information to detect threat, we are also taking a very close fiduciary look and saying, these are your kids going online. These are your families. These are your elder family members who may not have grown up in this digital economy. How do we provide the interfaces, the structure, the infrastructure, and the management tools so that we can run a modern economy in a respectful way? I believe that respect and the outcroppings of respect are things that can be coded into systems. We can figure out the culture that we want and not be victims and say there's just so much data we can't do anything about it. So this is another example of that. I think it's a sneak attack on a couple different levels. We educate children. Those children go home and they educate their parents. Those parents get more involved and excited about schools, and we prepare a child to actually participate in an information-based economy where learning and knowledge workers are the most valued among us. So this hits on so many very different levels, and I think this is how we work now. Just like we work at home and we play on the road all the time, we educate our children and we enforce and enhance our society.
If I could just add to that, I think some of the statistics are staggering. I think about 60% of the parents don't believe their kids can get in trouble when they go online. So you can just see the education piece is so critical, especially when you get younger children involved in the cyber education, and then they can go back and educate their parents, just as you said.
Absolutely. We have some data on that front too. 50% of all parents say that they do speak to their children about online safety, but when you query the kids, only half of them say they've ever been approached. So there's clearly a disconnect. Michelle, one more question for you. For everybody in the room today, what would you say in answer to the question, what are 2 or 3 things that you should do to keep your identity and your data and your devices safe online?
Okay, so I'll give you the same advice I give from kids who are wee little ones into the seniors, the Silver Surfers program that we have to the seniors. Please, please change a password today. Just one. You will be appreciably more protected. Look at the settings that are already inherent in the devices that you're using. Are you sharing the way you want to share your information? Assume that almost everything you're doing digitally is an open megaphone until you actively take steps to protect it. And think about it very strategically and critically in that way. And most importantly, continue communicating. Talk to the people around you. Notice, for example, if you read any New York Times article, for example, or Washington Post, read the comments. Such anger, such awfulness. Let's notice that we as adults are not acting the way we want our kids to act. And let's not engage in that kind of behavior online, because it's a new culture dawning, and it's up to us to control that.
Great. Bill, anything you want to add?
No, I would just say, on that question, I'm just going to turn it over to her, and I'm going to pick her brain after this session even some more. I'm going to try to change my password just so my wife can't get into my bank account.
There you go. There you go. Cut up those credit cards virtually.
Okay, at this point, I think we wanted to open it up for questions to all of you in the room. So, any questions from the room?
You go right there.
Thank you so much. I'm Paula Stern. I'm a trustee of CED, and I've been pushing for CED and our education committee to get into computing and computing science and information technology because it is so critically important. And while we talk about STEM, when you look at the pipeline problem we have from a business and innovation economy and our future point of view, it's really about focusing your money and your resources on computing and information technology. And I say that because, and maybe I can make this into a question. One of the things that I work with, as Michelle knows very well, is the National Center for Women and Information Technology, NCWIT, which is a nationwide effort to bring communities, leaders, and Intel and others together. So I thank y'all very much for this, but I guess my question would be, from an education point of view, and that's what I wanted to ask the kids and their teacher, is how much are you getting, as the young girl asked, you know, who worked on this app, who worked on that? How much are we doing, particularly bring in girls, if you look at the statistics, it's really bad, to teach computing in the classroom, like we teach biology or we teach math. So that's my question, and whether you think we're doing, you know, an adequate job there
I'll start
from
and I'll
Intel's
let you
point of view.
Jump in. Some of the states are actually, and some of the districts are actually looking at teaching coding in part of the core curriculum. Now, that's not a national mandate. That is a national mandate in the UK, but it's not in the US yet. But I think organically it's going to happen. I think, you know, we haven't talked a lot about STEM education, but I think organically people know that, look, we have to get our kids to understand how to solve real world problems, how to become critical thinkers. That's going to be more and more important. Your point on diversity is a great one. What we're doing, actually, we've worked with districts that, there's a couple of districts in Florida that actually did a STEM camp this summer just for girls. Then they also did a STEM camp just for minorities that English language learners took. So you're seeing more and more of the district work. What I think can also help, again, it's, you know, one of the districts was able to get businesses to help support and fund that. But I think there's a light on that issue, no question. I think diversity in Silicon Valley, you know, there's another article this week in the national trades about it. So I think we can start at a younger age. I think STEM education is going to do that. I do believe there should be a larger focus on it. I think it's going to happen. I think every kid should learn how to code at a very early age.
Yeah, it's a matter of, coding is a matter of how to think critically, which is so important for the problems and the type of work, and I'm sure that we'll talk about this more on the panel that's to come. But I think also a couple of cool things happened. I'll tell the story. I did tell it last fall here, actually, but I'll tell it again because it's my favorite one. So Tracy Ross, who is a leader of this program, and I went down to South Central LA, and we taught in this wonderful charter school, you know, talk about public-private kind of a mush, wonderful program, fenced in, you know, former mass storage company that was repurposed as a school. So there's a big metal rolly doors, and those are classrooms for these kids, and they're fenced in. So we got done with our program about Stop, Think, Connect, at the time working with the NCSA, Michael's here somewhere, and this young lady walked up to me, and at one point someone had said someone met somebody online and then went off to meet that person at a truck stop, a very young girl, about 13 years old, went to go meet a 55-year-old man at a truck stop alone in the middle of the night. And my answer to that question in the big room was that, you know, we love you as the adults in the world. We love you, and we want you to be safe online. And I just kind of said it, and she walked up to me afterwards, and she said, "Did you really mean that you loved me?" And I thought, you're so sweet. And I said, I actually do. You know, you might be the president of the United States. You might be my daughter's college roommate. You might be my boss. So yes, I really, really do mean that. And she said, you know what? I have a secret. And I thought, oh gosh, because you get into these schools and there's a lot of secrets that our kids have that are really dark. She said, I want to be an astronaut, but I can't tell anyone in my community because studying and smart girls aren't cool. And I said, well, do you think I'm cool? And she said, yeah, that's how we get diversity. We stand up in our own space and we show up with our lipstick on and our feet, you know, in uncomfortable shoes, and we just be ourselves as authentically as possible. And that's, you know, that's how life is. And I think we've forgotten in the workplace and certainly online that that's diverse thinking, different cultures, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic experience makes this think before you link, think in the way that you are. And the creative thinkers who've been through really tough times, I want you in cyber all day long
Because if you know how to hunt, peck, if you've ever been hungry and had to figure out how to, like, scrub toilets so that you can put yourself to school at night like I did, I know that you're a fighter. Come and fight with me. So I want these kids to really experience diversity as part of staying safe online and realize that it's a feature, not a bug.
Any other questions?
There's one right there.
Hello, my name is Joshua Vermillion. I'm from a company called Tot Labs out of Boston. One of my quick questions was what initiatives are you guys working on in reference to the current situation in regards to skills that are in demand? So you mentioned STEM, you mentioned I hear things like 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years out, and investments that are into folks that are, you're investing into children and you're investing into how they can leverage the economy that way. But what about the folks that are transitional, that are out of work now, or this is probably better for the next discussion, forgive me. But since I have your attention here, is there something that Discovery and Intel and you guys are working on?
Well, I can speak on K-12 classrooms, right? I mean, that's what our focus is, and what we're looking at. One of the things that, if you ask districts 2 years ago about this digital transformation, because it's happening in classrooms, 2 years ago, districts would say, should I make this digital leap? Now, when you talk to digital leaders, or excuse me, superintendents, they'll say, how do I make this digital leap? Now, why is that important? Well, first of all, today's learners engage with content in totally different ways than how we grew up, right? If you think about how much content a student today is accessing, they're online, 7 hours a day, and they're consuming about 10 hours of content. Now, you might ask, how's that possible, right? Well, today's learners are multitasking. Go into teenagers' room. They're going to have their headphones on listening to music. They're going to be instant messaging with their friends. They're going to be watching a video all at the same time. So we have to engage with these students totally different than how we learned. So you're seeing so much disruptive innovation in classroom that we've talked about a bit. So one of the nice things is, for example, digital textbooks. You can engage students totally different. It's content that's updated. They can learn in different paces. The nice thing is you can meet individual students, okay, regardless of how they best learn and where they are in the learning process. So for the first time, you can actually treat individual students like individuals. So I think that's what's really exciting about education, and I'll just share just a quick story on how these tools are making a difference. Rock Hill, South Carolina, we started a digital transformation with them a couple years ago, and recently I got a note from the superintendent that he was sent from one of the parents. Well, the parent sent him a note and was thanking the superintendent for the new digital textbook and how their daughter embraced it, used it, et cetera, because it was the first time the father could help the daughter with their homework, because with the touch of a button it could translate from English to Spanish. And so the parent couldn't speak any English. So this is the kind of technological change, if it's impacted and done right, you can make such a substantial difference.
Next question.
I
think I saw one right over here.
A question. What you're doing is fantastic. The question is, what is your strategy for bringing it as quickly as possible to scale? And you've spoken and you've shown us how you work with school districts. My question is, are you working with state education authorities, and are they at all responsive at that level, state, to what you're trying to do?
You enroll the states, but for the most part, districts have a lot of autonomy. I think one of the things that's happened in K-12, it's a small world, right? It's a small community. And more districts are communicating with each other about what works, what doesn't work. So I think that's one of the ways. There's an organization within education, it's called the Council of Great City Schools. The 60 top urban districts get together a number of times a year. They're sharing with each other what works, what doesn't work. So in Baltimore County, you're working with Superintendent Dallas Dance. He's sharing that information with the superintendent in Chicago, Barbara Bird Bennett. So I think that's one thing that's really exciting to see. But another thing is, and this is why it's so tough for there's a lot of VC money coming into education with building new products and new features and new technology. The challenge with that is they're building products. They're not building businesses. And it's so tough to scale because you do have an inertia, issue. You have to go district by district. So it is tough. Historically, you've had a few companies that have sort of dominated the relationships with educators. So it's a hard barrier to overcome. But if you're committed to really improving student outcomes, you have to do it. I think going forward, I'm excited because I think going forward, the companies that will be successful working in education, number one, they have to scale. But the way you're going to do that is you actually have to demonstrate success. There's alignment in education now. So the companies that are, I think, getting into education to make money will fail. It's the companies that are focused on improving student outcomes that will be successful.
From an Intel security perspective, let me just share something with you as well, which is there's a dirty little secret about this program. A year ago, it was handled entirely by volunteers within the company who presented online training one-to-one. And we got to 250,000 kids, as I mentioned earlier, but that is certainly not a strategy to scale. So that's what led to our partnership with Discovery Education. We know through Discovery's platforms that we can reach 35 million kids once this program fully rolls out. Those are numbers that are far more interesting than the 250,000 kids that we've gotten to in the last 3 years.
Yeah, as I like to say, Shark Week. Hello. You don't get bigger than Shark Week. You don't get bigger than Discovery Education. And this shows you diversity, right? Great technology. We have all the tools. We got all the experts here. These guys have the delivery module and the pre-existing relationships and the respect of teachers. You have to have the respect of teachers or you're going to get nowhere. So this is, as you can tell, we're just a little bit excited.
I mean, there's a lot of great work that businesses are doing, and the nice thing is to bring it to scale, as your point, it's not going to have the impact unless you can do it. So right now we're in about 50% of all public schools across the country. We want to be in 70, we want to be in 80%. So the nice thing about these tools, they're available to everybody, not just the schools that we're in. So anyways, we want to thank Intel Security for the great work that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we have time for about 2 more questions. Anybody else in the room? It's hard to see you guys.
I know, we've been stunned. We've stunned them into silence.
The kids had a lot more questions to ask. So
I know, let's get the kids back on.
I'm just curious, building on that, what can we all do in this room to help share these resources out with our network?
Ooh, so we didn't mention the sweepstakes.
Right.
So here's something, a little sweetener to the pie. If you go to thinkbeforeyoulinkinschool.com to launch this program, we're offering, the top prize of our sweepstakes is $10,000 grant to the elementary school of your choice. So even if you don't have kids in school anymore, but you have contacts with communities, you have contacts with teachers or parents that might, I know everyone is just flush with cash in schools, but for those rare exceptions where they might need $10,000 of grant, and we also have some of the prizes are also a ticket to get teachers to the Technology and Education Conference in 2015. So, be a little Machiavellian for yourself, go online, check out the curriculum, play with it, tell everyone you know about it. I love that we're tweeting at CED. I mean, that blows me away. So I'm sure, get on your Twitter handle. Where's Joe Minarek? I'm sure he's tweeting right now. And Joe Kasputes is out there tweeting.
And if I could add to that, we'd certainly love your advocacy. If you can help champion this program, if you can encourage your kids to get online, to take the course and tell more people about it. I mean, truly, this is a wonderful thing, and we want as many people championing it as we can.
And again, just to reinforce that the idea of the public-private partnerships is terrific. I think education has changed in a lot of different ways, but one of the things that has happened is you have more stakeholders that are concerned about education. And so the business community coming together to look at these issues, workforce development, financial literacy, cyber education, it's just great to see.
Yeah, great.